Good morning, everybody. Kyle Smith, Operations Section Chief, here on the west zone of the Dixie fire. So I'll give you all an operational briefing this morning. We'll start down here again in this very south end of the west zone. It'll be called Branch 5 and Branch 18. It follows along the Highway 36 corridor. There's a lot of great work going on down in that area. They're mopping up, they're doing some suppression repair, and in some of those areas they're able to backhaul some of the fire supplies so they can be utilized on other areas of the west zone of the Dixie fire. So with that being said, let's talk a little bit about mop-up. So mop-up's a process that we utilize after the fire front passes through, and all the resources, the boots on the ground, the equipment, we all go in there and look for those areas of heat concerns around the fire perimeter, and we go interior also for a certain amount of distance, 100 feet, 200 feet, and we effectively mop those areas up with water, hand crews, digging, stirring, to be able to extinguish those areas so they won't be a threat to the fire line and getting outside of the fire line to cause us existing or continual problems with the fire. So a little bit about suppression repair work. So what is suppression repair work? Suppression repair work is where we go in and rehab the fire lines, pulling the berms back in and put it back in its natural state, so we won't have any issues with when the rain does come, the winter snows, we won't have issues with erosion. So we try to get all those areas, hand lines, dozer lines, all back looking like it did before the fire ever occurred. So that's what we do when we talk about suppression repair. One other thing I want to mention before I go on around the fire perimeter on the west zone is you see a color coding here. The black lines that you see here on the south zone, those areas are put in patrol status. And what does patrol status mean? Patrol status is when we identify the areas that we've got all the heat out of it. We're still working on a few things that's interior, but for the most part, that's in patrol status. That means we've got resources still out there in those areas, patrolling those areas to make sure that we don't have any concerns, and we keep it in patrol status as we move forward with the fire. So the red lines you'll see as we go around the rest of the fire is areas that we're still actively mopping up and having some issues with spot fires or hot ember areas within the duff and the big 1,000-hour fuels, which is like logs, root stumps, that's still actively burning near the control lines. So with that, let's go ahead and continue. So moving on over here to the west in Division Juliet, Kilo, Lima, which follows along a portion of the Highway 36 and Highway 89 corridor, also around the Mill Creek area. Those areas are in patrol status as well. They're looking real well. We've had no issues in there in several days. We've got resources still in those areas. Keep an eye on that area to make sure if anything does pop up, we can take care of it real quick. So moving on up into the park in Division November, there's a little area right here south of Highway 89 that we got active hand crews in there putting in direct hand line and mopping up in some rocky areas and dealing with some shrubs in those areas as well. So that's looking real good. About 3 more days we'll have that and looking in real good shape. So moving on up into the park in Division Oscar around the Raker Peak area, we all got that hand line tied in probably about 3 days ago now. It went direct in there against the fire perimeter, and now we're doing some extensive mop-up to really put that to bed and put it in patrol status. So trying to really get that really worked real hard yesterday and also today in preparation for the wind we're going to have this afternoon and through tomorrow. So moving on up into Division Papa, which is the area around the old station. That's looking real good that we actually turned that line yesterday afternoon from red to black and placed it in patrol status. We still have resources in there within that community and around that community. Keep an eye on those dozer lines, hand lines, to make sure we still continue to keep that in patrol status. So it's looking real good. So big effort going into Division Sierra and uniform is that's an area of concern that we've got with this wind coming in. We still got a lot of areas to mop up in that area. So we've got a lot of resources, hand crews, engines, water tenders, some heavy equipment that's staged there in case we do have some issues with the wind that's coming in this afternoon and tomorrow. So just to give you an example, all the way around this whole finger here on the north end, it's 20 miles around that. So it's taken a lot of time and diligent time to get around that and be able to do the work that we need to do. So moving on down south of 44, in this little pocket right here is an area we had a flare up a few days ago. We got a dozer line in combination with hand line to cut that off, about a 400 acre flare up we had. So now they're in there extensively doing some mop up and trying to get that area in check and get it to the point that we will be able to maintain it through the wind event. Moving on down into Whiskey, right here around the division break between Division Whiskey and Division Zulu, in this little pocket right here, had a little issue yesterday, a little spot that occurred about an acre. We was able to catch it and contain it with equipment and hand lines. So today they're in there doing some great mop-up operations in there and able to maintain this and just keep a check on this through the wind event. Moving on down into Division Zulu. That area's been placed in patrol status. It's been looking real well the last several days. We still have resources in there as well, keeping an eye on that area to make sure we can still maintain it in patrol status. In the report.